Like Rock Nation tried to mess with my brother's reputation!
Liars.
Yes.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. SPK! Kick the beat. Now, guys, I didn't even know how the verdict turned out. I'm way on the other side of the road, but shout out to my boy SPK. He's the one that told me that Tory Lanez was found guilty on all 3 counts. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but I mean, it was looking pretty good for Mr. Tory Lanez. I mean, he had the gun expert saying his DNA wasn't on the gun. You know, you had the particular bodyguard that didn't show up. You had the makeup artist or the stylist, EJ. He had some damning testimony against Megan Thee Stallion. The best friend, Kelsey, had damning testimonies against him. It looked like the brother was going home. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And so now the father of Tory Lanez is blaming people for the fact that Tory Lanez got locked up. Let's go ahead and play that clip and we'll come back.
And the whole wicked system of Rock Nation, including you, Jay-Z.
Yes. Yes.
You who say you rose from the gutter, but you have traded and bartered the souls of young men. And you're still doing it. And I'm calling on all the umbrellas. I'm calling on everybody in this country to begin to rise up because your sons have been done dirty. It's not over. God does not lose. Never. And even though we've come to this juncture, trust me, you will see that our God does not fail.
This is not the
I know that this is wickedness.
I can honestly respect Tory Lanez's father for coming out and having this energy for his son, who has, you know, pretty much lost his career. His career is in big jeopardy. He's a young man, I think no older than 30 years old, and what a bright career he was having. And it's just now been, you know, like it's stunted, something like this, and you don't know what's going to happen, especially in the state of California, which you can get a lot of years, a lot of time if convicted. But now I want to have a serious conversation with a lot of black men. Some of the things that we want to do when things don't go our way and when our kids get into certain situations is we want to blame everybody, but number one, the child themselves, and number two, you. Because see, in order to blame yourself, it has to be accountability there. And a lot of black parents don't like to accept responsibility for how their kids turn out. Now, if your kid becomes somebody great, it's easy for you to accept that part. But now when your kid becomes a convicted felon or your kid is out there doing the wrong thing, you now don't want to take that part of the blame. And if you ever listen to Tory Lanez's music as a parent, I'd feel bad about that. I don't care if rap is not real or not. I'd feel bad about that my son was talking about the things that Tory Lanez talks about in his music. But here's the bigger part. You never talk to your son about the kind of women he should be hanging around. Because from you, he might have learned that all box is good box. Because see, if you're a good father and you have standards for yourself, your son wouldn't even know Meg Thee Stallion, even if they're in the same industry. And I'm going to talk about that because this is important. See, just because you're in the same industry as a person, it doesn't mean that you need to interact with them. Because see, some people in the industry just don't have morality. Some people in the industry are just not that good to be around. They're not good people. So therefore, you shouldn't be around them. And if you look at the kind of things that Meg Thee Stallion talks about, it's very similar to the stuff that Tory Lanez talks about. The only difference is she's a woman and he's a man. But to be dealing with women like a Meg Thee Stallion as a young black man is dangerous in itself. That's what we don't understand. Because see, what Tory Lanez, and I'm gonna make a whole video on that about black men. See, what Tory Lanez just experienced is what a lot of you brothers have experienced. Or if it's not been you, it's been somebody in your family, a brother, a cousin, somebody who goes down Not really because of, you know, situations that they cause themselves, like let's say drugs, but typically disputes happen over women. That's what kicked off the, you know, the rolling 60s versus the 8 Tray Gangsters beef. It all happened over a woman, and now 40 years later you have guys because, you know, people die behind that. And, you know, the foolishness that happens behind women, and I'm not blaming women at all for this, because we're the ones that choose who we want to be around. And as black men, you know, as long as she's letting me smash, that's all that matters, right? But see, you're thinking short term, because if I'm Tory Lanez and I have women that I'm dealing with, there's no way I'm dealing with somebody like a Meg Thee Stallion. But the problem is Mr. Tory Lanez didn't have any mentorship. Like, where's the mentorship? See, a lot of black men get into the celebrity world and lack mentorship. And then they start making mistakes. And then when they make mistakes, we want to blame everything else but the lack of mentorship. Because a lot of these black men, they see these brothers and they see these dudes coming up, how to behave as a man. And I don't know if Tory Lanez's father's in the house, but now looking at how Tory Lanez's father acts, just emotional like that and carrying on like he was, and I get, you know, how he feels. Tory Lanez probably learned that from his dad. Yeah, that's what happens, right? A lot of us learn how to be a man by the men around us or the lack of men around us, instead of knowing how to be tactical, instead of knowing how to have our kids around the right people. And then when our kids turn out to be something that we don't want them to be, we want to blame Rock Nation. We want to blame Jay-Z, when you were the one that was raising him before Jay-Z even knew him. And by the time he came into hip hop, he was already doing things he probably had no business doing, because he learned that from you, or he learned that because you were not there. And some of us don't want to take ownership of the fact that you failed as a parent. Yeah, even if Tory Lanez, he got off, it was not guilty, the fact that, you know, he was even on trial for that, it means that you made a mistake. And kids do make mistakes. Adults do make mistakes. And not everything is parents' fault. But then it damn sure ain't Jay-Z's fault. Jay-Z ain't on the jury. Jay-Z wasn't in the car that night. Rock Nation wasn't in the car that night. But you had Tory Lanez who were hanging out with some chicks who, let's just say, for example, those are the kind of women I tell brothers to run away from. Not because they're mean people, but, you know, if you want to deal with women in our community, we have women in our community that don't act like that. So why do you even invest your time and energy hanging out with those kind of people when things can happen? You know the girl is a drunkard. You know the girl has a bad attitude. So why are you dealing with her? Is it because she'll let you smash? Is that why? So was it worth it? If you did shoot her, then it's bad, right? You should go to jail. But what if you didn't shoot her? Now you just wasted your time because you smashed her. And then not only that, you were taking shots at the chick on your Twitter after the fact, making cryptic posts. That made it even worse. Again, where is the mentorship? Lack of mentorship is what is killing black men. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.